We do indeed. You should be right here next to Jeff.
Thank you.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, but I've been there for a year.
Okay. All right, we'll call to order. Call to order this regular meeting of the Easton Board of Education at 7:30 p.m. on September 14th, 2021. Our first back in-person regular meeting for a bit. Really glad to have members in attendance. Jen DeJesus, Jeff Parker, Jenny Cheetah, Devin Weibel, and myself, John Stinson. Randy, I believe, will be joining us at right around 8:30 tonight and possibly dialing in as well. We'll move to the approval of minutes. Now, we have a number of minutes that we weren't positive went through the appropriate sort of approval process. We want to make sure that we're all buttoned up on that. The minutes were distributed last Friday to members, and so what we'll do, we actually don't need to vote on the approval of minutes. We can approve these absent objection, and the process that we can use for the number of meeting minutes that we have here is essentially we'll look for corrections. So the minutes for the following meetings below A through I have been distributed to the members of the board as of September 10th. And at this time, the chair will seek any and all corrections. So I'll look for any corrections from members of the board.
Not me.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Hearing. I'm sorry.
Mask, please.
I'm sorry. It's a requirement for, yeah, in all public.
And your nose as well. Not
yeah.
just hanging off your ear.
Oh, no, it's, you know, it's not a law, it's a mandate. So from mandate.
So.
And made a date.
So effective Monday, August 23rd, 2021, individuals refusing to properly wear a mask are in breach of the peace and will be removed from the building.
It's on.
No, it's not.
Do it
It's not over your nose.
It's not over your nose.
It's all over.
No, I'm not gonna carry on until
We're all playing theater.
We're playing theater.
Yeah,
That's
we
our
are,
point.
but we're doing that.
But
Make
we're
it-
choose not to play theater. It's a
Then
lesson
no,
to-
wait there.
Hi, can we please have an officer at Helen Keller Middle School? We need someone removed for breach of peace.
We need what? We need to be removed for each of these.
Correct.
because I'm not wearing my
I talked to
mask.
the chief earlier today. Thank you. Yes, it's Ann Minuski.
Oh.
John Stinson, I'm the chair of the
I've
board.
been from the board of ed for 4 months.
She is not wearing her mask. Thank you very much. We're in the media center. Thank you. Okay. Moving back to our minutes approval, absent objection. Sorry, here we go. No additional corrections, absent objection, the minutes will be approved as presented. Hearing none, we'll consider them approved. Thank you very much, everyone.
Excellent.
We'll move on to public comment. For public comment, we'll ask that you please state your full name, street, and town. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Please make sure that you're focusing on Easton's educational interests. Please do not target individual district personnel. And of course, please express as much as possible in your comments in a civil manner. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Allison Brown, Gregory Farm Road, Easton. A few comments. I wrote this on my long train ride home today, but I made it here. While you provided an option to view the meeting via YouTube, it would be great to continue a Zoom option. Many of us have returned to the office with long commutes to New York City, and it would benefit the entire community if all families were afforded the opportunity to participate in our kids' education. We have the technology, we know how to work it, and I think it's a shame that we go back to the Stone Ages. Public and the board and everybody else here, we don't have an interaction, so I think it would be okay to have public comment on Zoom. On the technology front, we will have students and teachers who will need to quarantine even with the newer relaxed protocols. We need more than offline virtual classroom as an option. Again, we have the technology, teachers and students know how to work it. So I don't know why we have to take 2 steps back to not allow live classroom streaming just when needed. I'm not asking for a hybrid model. If you only provide an offline option, you'll create an environment where parents are more reluctant to get their kids tested when needed, and they will not be open to random testing. No live streaming creates a health risk and hurts all students. Speaking of technology, can we begin a discussion again on robotics, coding, etc., beginning in SSES and upping our game in Helen Keller? Everyone agrees with this, yet we never can move on it. We've been talking about this for years. And finally, another topic we've been talking about for years, posting the curriculum online. I believe the most recent time was pushed back, was from the summer to September. So I don't know why we keep this, national secret. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Antonuski, 20 Morning Glory Drive. So I have a couple of things. One is I have a press release. I'm the co-coordinator on Nest for Kids, Reading, Easton, Wilton, Weston, Westport, and Ridgefield. And I spoke at the American Liberty Center event up in Uncasville about a month ago. So there's handouts about the detrimental effects, psychological effects of masking our children. My background is also that I'm the Connecticut coordinator for child abuse in the classroom. I'm an education advocate and a former LPC in the state of Connecticut. There's also handouts from last night's board or town meeting in regard to the items that are going to be up for review. The sex in the 4th grade class, I finally after 4 years got the materials. So there's a group called Save Our Town, Save Our Schools. I can't breathe. That Save Our Town, Save Our Schools will have it's called Health and Wellness for 4th graders. It's actually sex ed, part of it. The male and female anatomy, which most parents don't even know. It's in there. So that will be on Save Our Town, Save Our Schools website as soon as possible. I had requested a moratorium back in 2018 from going forward with the sex ed, but the school district in Easton decided to still have it. I do have copies of the social emotional learning program, the roller program. Many parents don't realize they're actually teaching your children how to think and how to feel. And it's very detrimental to a child's self-learning, self-awareness. They're training them. So that's real negative in our school district. And also, I was very curious that Dr. McMorrin had a vaccine clinic at the ECC this Sunday. Very disturbing. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Yes.
Hi, my name is Rachel Mazzarelli. I live on 29 Groundhine Lane in Houston. Let me first say that I have zero political agenda. If you ask me a political question, I would embarrassingly know not even kindergarten. So let me just put that out there. I'm in the healthcare profession. I am all about science. And so I am coming to the board, the community, with questions and ideas for food for thought that I hope that will be considered. I read through our protocol for if there is a COVID and what you do if you are exposed. Apparently, unvaccinated children need to quarantine, vaccinated don't. I found it peculiar, given the fact that I have immersed myself so hard into the science around this. I mean, I'm probably 150 hours into listening to doctors of all kinds from all over the world, the CDC, PubMed, the Lancet, you name it. So on August 5th, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, head director of the CDC, went on national television and said that if you were vaccinated, you can still get and transmit the virus. So I question, why are some children having to stay home and some children aren't? I don't know if there's a reason for that. If there is, I would love to know it, and I would love to see whatever data made that decision and be able to offer other data that might change that decision. Number one, it completely shames children. Number two, it affects we already know there's so much value to being in school with your peers face to face, for physical and emotional. And so I'm not really sure where that decision came from, but if there's one thing that I'm certain is that science, like all modalities, evolves. And decisions that we made yesterday, we made them for a reason. And it's very possible with new information, new research, which is coming out every day. I'm blown away by what I read every day and what they're now finding. To be able to go to the table and say, you know what, we made this decision back then, but it's really not accurate for right now today. And so I'll ask for that one thing to be revisited. I don't know how that happens again. I don't know how any of this works, because it makes no sense. I had another point. Hold on. I didn't come here because that stressed me out about having to write anything. Also, if children do need to stay home, I don't know, I'm asking, is there a virtual option, or are they just not able to stay on task with their classes? I would love, can I ask a question, get an answer, and still talk?
So just for everyone's benefit, so the way that the public comment works is that people are able to make comment. We then will have board member comment. It is very common, I can tell you very likely, that we're going to address many of the things that you've talked about tonight through our administrative reports and various conversations.
Okay.
There'll also be an opportunity for additional public comment at the end.
So I should just keep talking.
R-
Okay.
Rachel?
Yeah.
Could you give me your last name again?
Sure, Mazzarelli.
Thank you.
Mazzarelli.
And just a note, you are against time here. So.
Oh, okay. I could go on and on about the science and the whatever, but that's where I'm at right now. At some point, hopefully, I think that will readdress this. The new science is coming out that children are really suffering from this, myocarditis. More children have died from being vaccinated and gotten diagnosed with myocarditis and pericarditis than have actually died from the virus. It's not a childhood virus, thank God. And so I just want our policies for our children, we are here for the children, to be accurate for the children. And I want to handle this in a way that's appropriate, like we handle other things. And so thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Yes, please.
I'm Hillary Desmond. I'm at 71 North Park Avenue in Easton, and I just want to thank you as a parent of two children, one that is in the Easton School District and the other is in the Easton Reading School District. Thank you so much for the past 18 months of looking after my children, making sure that they are safe in school. They have thrived this past 18 months in COVID and with all the uncertainty. They've been in school more than any of my other relatives in many other states. And you have all been looking after their well-being. At the same time, I was so happy to meet Mr. Clapp tonight and see the work that you've done hiring the new administration, both I assume that you're also working with the superintendent and all of those transitions, and it has been just a joy, and I really appreciate all the work that you've done. And I know that you all are volunteers and you don't get paid for this, and it's spent so many hours, and it's made me really happy as a mother of 2 children in the district.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no additional public comment, we'll move to board member comment.
So much to say.
All right. And we will move on. All right, so we'll go to reports. We should have the 3 sections of reports here. Central office reports with superintendent, assistant superintendent, etc. Tom, you kick us off?
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be with you here tonight. 6 years ago, my first board meeting as your superintendent took place in Easton, and tonight will be my last board meeting as the interim superintendent. Dr. Jason McKinnon will be coming on Monday, the 20th, to take over, and I think I commend the boards, the 3 boards, for doing their diligence in finding a good person to come and move forward. We have a little bit more than 300 certified staff members in Easton, Reading, and Region 9, and a bit more than 200 support staff people. If we add in food service, bus transportation folks, and substitute teachers, we get up sometimes to a week, every 2 weeks, of payroll that could be issuing checks to as many as 800 people, depending on how many subs we bring in. So when I tell you that over the course of this summer, we have brought more than 80 new staff members on board, that's a really busy summer. Teachers, administrators, secretaries, paraprofessionals, BCBAs, all kinds of folks have joined us, and we're still in the process of filling up some of the open positions, recess paras and long-term subs and things like that. We're doing this with a central office staff that has had not only the superintendent secretary's position has been open, we filled it yesterday, but also the assistant superintendent's position has been open for a couple of weeks. And the reason I'm saying this is we're hearing from some members of the community, boy, I asked a question yesterday and you didn't answer it right away. You're going through a once, I think, in a generation opportunity with a new superintendent, new director of finance, new support at central office, 4 new principals of your 5 support folks, and new teachers coming in. You have a chance to define your vision of where you want to take these good schools. And I think it's important for the community to know that our human resource manager, Vicki Cram, and Dr. Stephanie Pearson-Ugal have kept this all together and moving. I don't expect you to be happy with every decision that gets made, or to be, thrilled with everywhere we're taking something. But I think I'm in the unique position to tell you of the extraordinary commitment that I've seen flowing from Dr. Pearson-Ugal, Ms. Cram, our nurse coordinator, Corey Disler, your new administrators, your veteran administrators, and I feel that you're in good hands. Your kids are in good hands. And I don't know there's a single person in the room who does not share the desire to do well by our kids. You'll just disagree about some of those things, but I urge you to continue to do it in this era of as you've done tonight, with civility towards each other and with a desire to ensure that the good work of Easton and Reading continues. As you know, lots of new folks in both towns have moved in over the last 8 or 9 months. And so we have a more rich, a more diverse student body and community. And I know that you, like I, are somewhat saddened that those traditional neighborhood picnics or greeting committees or meeting new people at your faith groups are impacted by the ongoing pandemic. But I want to tell you that I have been in all 5 schools. I've been inside the classroom or at the doorway of every teacher and group of students in those buildings in the last several days. And what I see are kids who are thrilled and delighted to be back in school. I see teachers who are so relieved to be able to actually see and interact with their kids. And I think you're off to a good start in this school year. And I don't know where it's going to go. I'm not going to crystal ball it. But I do know that it's a very thoughtful and responsible leadership has thought about what's the best way to educate our kids and keep everybody safe. I am glad to have been here for a month and a half. I've been working with Dr. McKinnon to get him up to speed on the 5 dozen things he needs to know as he comes in. He and I will be overlapping a bit more to help him get oriented. We are in conversation with all 3 teachers' unions about the question that was raised about how to best provide instructional services to kids who are quarantined or in isolation. I ask you to remember that our workforce is a 10-month group of people. In the summer, if we're going to work with people, we have to bring them in and pay them, which is proper. We don't have the funds to do that. So we're in the same place you are, starting up the school year. And the conversations that we're having are, what's the best way to engage every kid, the kids physically with us, the kids who are unfortunately at a distance in instructional practice. And we're trying to define what are the places where scenarios where if we have to go to a more distant a form of instruction, or have we learned the hard lessons from last year and are we ready to apply them? That's conversations going on. I am really, really proud to be a person who's known Kim Fox for 14 years now. And my own kids, there's no principal I would rather have overseeing my children's education than Kim Fox. And I am particularly grateful to her for the way she has opened her arms to Steve Clapp and really helped him to get oriented on joining the school here. I want to tell one more story, and I'm gone as of the end of this week. So if you don't like the story, that's okay. I think it's important that we respect the different opinions of each other if they come genuinely from the heart and the head. I have been pondering about the folks who have concerns about these masks. If I were to say, I don't want kids to wear masks, then that would get interpreted in various media in different ways. I want to get back to the point where you can see that beautiful child, but I don't think we're at that point. So I ask not to be taken out of context, not to be taken into some social exchange that misportrays what I'm saying. I have a duty as a public school administrator to observe the law in Connecticut, the directions and mandates placed on us by the governor's office, and then when he authorizes the Department of Education, the Department of Public Health, the Department of Child Welfare, those agencies to guide our practice. If you want to attribute to me a moral shortcoming and that I will not defy the law, go ahead and do it. I can, my shoulders are big enough for that. But it's my job to guide a system, and it'll be Dr. McKinnon's job to pick that up and observe that. Here's the story I want to tell you. And I'll come right up front. I know that when I write to you or I tell you, I talk to you, I tell you about my own family. And that's why I'm an English teacher. I'm an English teacher. I tell stories. I had for 16 years in my life, a niece, my niece Zoe. She was a twin. Her sister was Avery. Her parents, my brother and my sister-in-law, they couldn't have their own children. So they were thrilled when they heard that they could go to China and adopt twin sisters that nobody else wanted, medically fragile kids. And for 11 glorious years, we had these crazy twin sisters. You couldn't really tell them apart unless they were color-coded. And they loved their parents, their grandparents, and they loved the Patriots. Sorry, but they did. But then when Zoe turned 11, she developed a glioblastoma that took 5 years to kill her. And in those 5 years, she showed unbelievable personal courage, never giving into the struggles of the medications and the therapy. And she went to the Hole in the Wall gang. And I know I'm tugging at your heart. I don't mean to do that. What I want to say is this. When she went through that 11-hour operation and had to lose her hair, her friends, these 11-year-old girls, all put bows in their hair. She was wearing a bow, they wore a bow. If she had to wear a handkerchief, they wore a handkerchief. She was, before the manifestation, she was part of the dance team, part of their cheerleading squad. And even though she couldn't move, the girls said, "You will remain on our team. Even if we cannot win a competition, Zoe will dance with us." And she would stand there in this awkward way and move a little bit, this delight in her eye. And as she grew at a rate that showed that she was struggling with a life-threatening disease. Her friends shot up around her. So she went from being about average height to being 1.5 feet shorter than her friends. Zoe in Greek means life, A to Z. That's how my brother and his wife named her. I'm sorry this is more personal than it should be. When we get into these discussions about wearing the mask, what I hear people saying, and I totally understand it, and I honor it, and I respect it, and I don't question it, is I should have the decision about my kids' health. But to me, I have an opportunity to show concern and care for other people in this community. Zoe's friends didn't need to wear scarves. They didn't need to cut their hair short. They didn't need to keep her on the dance team, but they did it out of a gesture of love and community. So when I see a little kid wearing a mask, maybe that individual kid doesn't need to, but I think of the other kids in the classroom or the other people in the community. Maybe I know more about households that have grandparents and great-grandparents who are living at home, or people who are compromised from their own medical issues, or people who have susceptibility to ailments. And by all of us wearing the mask, we show a love and concern for others. I don't ask people to think anything differently about their own views about mask wearing or the merits of it or the science behind it. Make up your own decision. But perhaps there's some people who could go, you know what? It's okay for my kid if it helps another kid or another family. And if that's the comfort I take, that's the view that I have on it. And if that's a place that other people can get to, then you can think of Zoe too. Zoe, who in her struggling with her medication, you'd come to her house and she'd say, "Would you like a cup of tea?" She'd go make tea for you. It was her big accomplishment. And Zoe, I was at Zoe's side about a week before she passed away. I'm sorry, I'm tugging at your heart. I apologize. Where the local priest was able to give her and her sister confirmation into the faith. And a week later, Zoe moved on. And I stood next to my brother as more than 900 members of the community came to this big, gorgeous church to say, "I am so sorry. Is there anything I can do?" So this is my perspective. When someone goes, I'm so sorry, is there anything I could do? I go, yes, during this period, until we can work this out, you can wear a mask. I know there's people with asthma. I know there's people with reasons that it's difficult for them. There are challenges to that, and I don't have the answers to that. I'm an English teacher. I pay attention to what the law tells me to pay attention to. I strive to do things the right way. And I've always thought that even when you're disagreeing, you people in Easton said, I'm going to come here because it's a small town. I don't want to be part of a giant city. I want to know my neighbors. I want to be connected with them. So don't let your differences disconnect you. You can disagree in really civil ways. There are people at this table who have very different views, but it's always been to me a point of pride that you set aside your differences and strive to find a whole. And serving on a board of ed is the most difficult public service I can think of, because nobody ever calls you up to demand you to tell you how happy they are with something. It's always something you're not happy with. And remember, these folks are your neighbors, and they're here to do the same thing you want, which is take care of all of our kids. Now, if any of that upsets you, I will own all of it. You don't have to see me after early next week, and you'll have a new bloke here to try to help move you forward. But it's my duty to tell you how deeply appreciative I am of these people here and their counterparts in Easton and Reading, and how proud I am that you can navigate this without animus overwhelming you. So I think of Zoe every day. She's my niece. Her sister is now a sophomore at Regis College. Never going to be an only child to my brother and his wife. She'll always be half of the twins that they had such joy to raise. Our job here for teachers, as teachers, is to love your kids and help them learn. The rest of it, excuse me, is bullshit. And you guys let the BS overwhelm you when it should be about love and education. So find your way back to that middle that you were all there not too long ago. Befriend your neighbors. I'm sorry, now I'm preaching to you, amen. But I so believe in this town, and I believe in Reading. And I believe that your schools are extraordinary places, and that Barlow is one of the finest schools that I would ever want a kid to go to. So hold that, please, as you go through the other stuff. And that was way more than the superintendent's report. And I'd like to see Dr. Pearson-Hugo follow that.
I was gonna say, and you would just go out with a bang, won't you? And we need to move on to practical matters.
Right.
Well, I'm happy to say that I have some good news to share as well. I will not say it as eloquently after Dr. McMorrin, and I do not have stories to share. But we can think of his heartwarming stories and the recentering message that I think is so important for all of us. I have a lengthy report this month, so I want to move on to the topics in my report. First, I want to share that we had a terrific start to a summer academy program here in Easton this summer. This was a first for Easton on this scale, and we made an effort to work with our teachers associations and gather input, and also work with the community to offer a library program and have some coordination with Park and Recreation. So for a first year, I think that I'm just so grateful to, in particular, Christina Fiala and Giovanna Maiolo, who took on the role of Summer Academy leader at Samuel Staples. We were able to launch at the elementary school, not quite there yet for the middle school, but we were able to offer many classes at Samuel Staples. It ran through the month of July, 4 days a week. We had 269 participants. And I want to be clear here that some of those students were counted more than once. So students were able to take consecutive classes. So it might have been that one student took 4 sessions. So the 269 does not represent 269 entirely separate children. The summer program was offset by the ESSER 2 grant support. So you can see a little bit, almost $37,000 of ESSER 2 grant money went into defray the cost to parents by paying a part of the teacher salaries and also the advisor salaries. and a small amount of supplies for those programs. We asked for feedback from parents and from staff, and we got quite a bit of feedback. The vast majority of the feedback was extremely positive. Parents were really very grateful for the program, and I will say that the number one suggestion was, can we have more hours each day, and can we have more days a week, and can we have more weeks in the summer? So in general, very positive feedback. They enjoyed the variety of the programs. Some particular programs were called out. And then there was a request, as I said, for additional days. People were looking for more options, particularly for the earliest learners, kindergarten and first grade, and then earlier communication, which we were aware of. We know that we got a very late start with the communication, finalizing the agreements with the teachers, and it really just attempting to coordinate a little bit. So we'll start that early next year. We hope to have greater collaboration between the two towns as well. It would be terrific to be able to offer an array of classes in both Easton and Reading and open that up a little bit more. But I think for year one, things in general went very well. I want to provide an update regarding the curriculum and the public availability. This is absolutely stalled, and it was stalled first by, frankly, the transition between Rubicon Atlas and the Google Folder plan. We were going to initiate that in the summer of 2020, and for obvious reasons, that summer work did not occur in 2020. So we gathered a whole lot of input from the Board of Education curriculum committees, and then also through our Year 9 curriculum steering committee, and we created a really grand design for what we wanted to accomplish by changing the view for the public, for parents, really thinking carefully about the information that would be most useful to parents. We came up with that plan, and then we couldn't execute that plan because we simply did not have the funding or the availability of teachers to work in the summer of 2020. We used the summer curriculum writing money, quite honestly, to bring in the teachers who were willing and able to work, to allow them to make the modifications to their classes that would be necessary given the changes that were in place last school year. So in particular, teachers who taught music or physical education who needed to make more significant modifications for their program were given the opportunity to come in and work for a number of days and make those program changes. So the money that might have been used for some of that curriculum work needed to be redeployed for those reasons. So we have moved forward with our plan, and then again, the hope was that this summer, most of that work could get accomplished in order for us to launch at the start of this year. I'll be honest that we had some teachers who initially said, yes, I'm willing to work this summer, created a plan, and then just said it was an incredibly demanding, difficult year. I need to take some time off. And if I'm going to be at my very best next year, I cannot commit the number of days that I had planned to do this. So that set us back a little bit. As Dr. McMorrin shared, if our teachers don't choose to work over the summer, we certainly can't compel them to do that. And without the teachers actively engaging in that process, it frankly becomes clerical work that won't have as much meaning, and it won't be as valuable, I think, ultimately for the public. So that work has started once again. We are still working towards an end of September goal to get that up and running. I'm working very closely with Sarah Scrivani, who is helping us to reimagine the public access piece, really thinking about visually how we can make things more accessible to the community and have fewer layers that need to be delved into in order to find what you're looking for. So that work is continuing. I know that at the elementary level, our K-5 classroom teachers are implementing Envision Math. We provided a great amount of PD that started last spring to orient the teachers to that program. And then they spent the first 2 days back this school year before the students returned, engaged again in more professional development. That will continue on both our full staff days and our early release days. So most of the professional learning time at the elementary level this year is going to be spent focused on a successful launch of this new math program. We have run into a few technology glitches to start the year, so we're working closely. And again, Sarah Scrivani has been a tremendous help, just being a liaison with our building specialist and with the company in order to get this going. So we are excited about this, though. Safe school climate. Over the summer, I convened the district Safe School Climate Committee. Prior to this summer, the superintendent and I have not been directly involved with the district level Safe School Climate Committee. This is a group that includes assistant principals, and it is chaired by one of our assistant principals. Given the great amount of discussion that we had over the last year about different topics that fall under the umbrella of climate, I thought that it made sense for us to come together and really talk about the structure of that committee and how we could improve communication and restructure the way that that committee has been functioning in order to accomplish some of the goals on an operational level. So with that in mind, we met a number of times over the summer and we made some changes. So you can see in my notes that those changes will include, but the meeting frequency is a big change. So rather than meeting twice a year, with a purpose really just to confirm the questions in the climate survey for staff, parents, and students, and then to look at the results of that survey internally, we will now meet every month of the year, including in the summer, to talk about more long-term plans. What are the 3-year goals or the 1-year goals, and how are the district goals informing school level goals? And then what does the school level climate committee entail in terms of its composition? Being sure that we're communicating the activities of the committee, being sure that parents know that they're welcome to join that committee, et cetera. So I'm really looking forward to this work. It's a slight shift for my office, and we've had some really purposeful conversations. So I'm looking forward to digging in with that more. I will also include in my monthly board reports an update to all of you. And finally, our ESSER grant. As you know, there are 3 different ESSER grants. There is the ESSER 1 grant that was in place for most of last year. That money went mainly towards technology purposes. The ESSER 2 grant funded Summer Academy, it funded interns, and it funded professional learning. So that professional learning specifically, you might remember Dr. Harrison talking about the Acceleration Network. We will be participating in the Acceleration Network that's a statewide group of different districts that's really focused on how we can think about student learning in a way about moving forward, not thinking about deficit. So how are we going to advance the learning for all students? And that work will be ongoing this year. We've just completed the ARP ESSER grants, and they have been fully approved in Easton. So we're looking forward to spending that money now. I want you to know what that is going towards. In Easton, we have $277,196. We will be hiring math paraeducators in both Samuel Staples and in Keller. We will be hiring building substitutes, and I would have to go back to my master sheet, but my colleagues to my left can confirm. I believe that's just at Helen Keller, the building substitutes. Yes. Samuel Staples was fortunate to have more people interested in serving as interns, so we have more interns at Samuel Staples. Those interns are completing student teaching right now. When their student teaching concludes, then they will be available for building something, and we really hope to bring those individuals into the work of supporting students who might be home doing work. So right now they're doing their student teaching, but then we have them for the rest of the year, and we will continue their work. And priority 2 has to do with family and community connections in Easton. That will take the form of parent workshops organized in collaboration with special education. Social and emotional mental health of students and staff. So this is going to go towards a number of anti-bullying, upstander training, and inclusive school practices. So in particular, the middle school already has some upstander training that's planned, and we're looking forward to that work. And finally, building safe and healthy schools. We have purchased some additional tables, signage, et cetera, things that will be different mitigation strategies to support a healthy and safe learning environment for staff and students. And I think that sums it up. I will add just by saying, member of the public question, the guidelines that we received from the state. And I will say that those guidelines are not set in stone. So as recently as yesterday, the isolation and quarantine guidelines that we had received the day after we published our district guidelines have already been updated. And I was on the phone with our nurse coordinator late this afternoon, confirming the two changes that we would make to our document to change the length of time that needs to pass between quarantine and testing. And then there was another update specific to athletes. So those changes happen on a very regular basis. So I want people to know that just because it's published doesn't mean that that's the way it is for the remainder of the time. We do change them with updates, and certainly as the health conditions change, we certainly hope to provide the updates that are moving to less restriction, not more. And that is my report for this month.
Thank you. Questions? Any questions for Stephanie? Thank you.
I have to apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to give everyone a chance first to ask questions. Any questions for Dr. Pearson? You go.
I have a question. You reminded me that I wanted to ask you about it with the health and safety schools, like the idea of the extra tables for lunch seating, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Since this all started, been concerned about our littlest people, you know, in settings that are rigid, you know, that they're not sitting together, they're not facing one another, they're not sharing materials. You know, last year, the kindergartners could bring in a few toys from home and they played in their seats. They didn't play with each other. And I've only seen sort of what the inside of one classroom would look like, but still, you know, with little ones, the desks are very, very spread apart. It almost looks like they're sort of on little islands and they're very far away from their peers, at least it appears so.
Right.
And so are we still limited? Forgive me for not knowing this. Are we still limited by direction? Like, do the students still, according to the regulations, have to all be facing in one?
Yeah, that's not a mandate from the state. So a few things have changed. First of all, we no longer limit sharing of materials. That's just the news of science and what we know about virus transmission. The students are able to share material that's in a very low risk activity. The state does not require us that the students face in one direction, but the younger the student, the more likely they are to have some difficulty maintaining the other mitigation strategies. So more likely to get closer than they should be to a peer, more likely to have the mask drop down and need to be reminded to pull the mask up. We also think about the distance and the room set up in terms of quarantine. So when we learn of a positive case, we go through the process of contact tracing. And the state has made it an exception, working with DPH this year, to allow for a different rule in the classroom as long as students are still. So if a student is sitting at a desk, we can use a 3-foot rule for contact tracing. If they're seated very close together in clusters, you immediately then are quarantining more children. And we're really trying to avoid that. So by having the kids a greater distance, well, obviously there are negative effects to that. The hope is we can keep them in school, keep them learning in person, and not need to quarantine as much. And so that's the reason.
I guess I'll just finish with advocating that as much as possible, if we can think of ways to move kids back towards a more typical experience, because I'm still concerned about sort of kids' views about school and, you know, not having those very early exposures to a more social environment. I shouldn't want to say that it isn't a social environment right now, but it's different, you know, that it's a much more rigid, structured setup in the room, and that it not for all kids, but you know, it's those early years of interaction and sharing, and you know, the faces are covered, plus they're not seeing one another, I think, in that same way. And I've seen I understand what you're saying about the quarantining. So I guess it's, you know, balancing what are we losing in the classroom experience versus having larger numbers of kids have to be out for a period of time. So I think it's still a question, still something to sort of discuss and keep revisiting over time if we could.
It definitely is, and I will say that we are not locked to, this is absolutely what we're going to do for the entire year. I think we want to start the year in a way so that we're teaching everyone how to be back at school and the procedures that are in place, especially for little ones. Some of our kindergartners really didn't have a preschool experience, so we're teaching them how to exist in a social environment. And some of the things that we take for granted, like sitting in a circle or lining up, are just not familiar to our youngest learners. So we are always reevaluating, and we meet on a very regular basis to debrief and participate deeply in the stakeholders. So as things change, and I think as we continue our administrative conversations, we are always balancing the wanting things to feel as normal as possible and thinking about the needs of the children with how do we keep people happy. But I appreciate that because I think we all feel the same. We all wish we could see this.
On a positive note, I think the children are thrilled to have things like lunch in the cafeteria. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but they are so excited about it, and traveling to their specials and seeing their teachers in those special spaces. So thank you for making that possible.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Any additional questions for, yes, I think Devin does, and then we'll go to Jeff.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just want to make a quick 2 comments. One, for Summer Academy, I'm really happy that you said it's coming back next year. It was really lovely. The team did a great job. My kids went all 4 weeks, and I was one of those parents who put in that we should do it longer during the day. And I will say, Carline pickup, she might rival you in her abilities. It was pretty impressive. And I do want to just kind of push the public to look at how the Safe School Climate Committees have been adopted. I think it's such a positive change and will add a lot more transparency. So I'm just grateful for that change. And I know that an email went out asking for parents to join that committee. And so I just wanted to say that here so the public could hear it, to make sure folks are aware that you guys are looking for parent reps.
Great. Jeff?
Okay, thanks. Steph, on the district climate committee changes, you mentioned a data analyst.
Yes.
Who are we using and how do we come about making that decision?
Dr. McMorrin and I worked with a representative from Ed Advanced to hire one of their statisticians. And we provided them the data from both the school climate surveys this spring and also the DEI surveys for them to conduct an independent analysis of that data. Now, I will say that it is really helpful to have a statistician to confirm that indeed the results are exactly what was pulled from SurveyMonkey and from our Google documents. As educators, we use a qualitative lens to understand quantitative data. And what I mean by that is that if we learn as leaders that 3 children out of 100 feel unsafe at school, that is not an acceptable number. To a statistician, that would not be significant in any way. So I'm really looking forward to reading that analysis. We have not received it yet. We were just discussing that this afternoon.
Okay.
And I think that using that in addition to the more qualitative understanding and helping us to define our school goals, and then also looking at that analysis and how that can help us with future surveys, climate surveys, that is.
Do we have a date that we expect to get this data?
So we expected it now, so I would say hopefully by the end of this.
Okay. So at the next board meeting, will we get a full report?
Yeah, you should have a full report. I think that the expectation was that it would be ready to present to the DEI task force, and then in turn I will have a report to share with all 3 boards.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Jeff?
Just real quick, I want to say thank you for all that good news. It's really uplifting. I really love that you're increasing from once or twice a year to once a month meeting in the climate. I think that's fantastic ad. I love that you're improving the transparency with parents. That's going to be fabulous when we're able to get the teachers on board and have some time to do that. And then I just got a question on the grants, being new to the board. Are the grants the same year to year, or are any of them net new? It sounded like the math one was net new. Is that correct, or?
There's no math grants, so the
Oh,
ESSER
the-
grants are all.
the
COVID-related
277?
grants. So the ESSER grants are relief grants related to the pandemic. There are grants that are annual grants, that includes Title I, II, III, and IV, as well as special ed grants. And that's money that comes into us from the state or the federal government on an annual basis, and then is used to support our students and staff. The ESSER grants are specifically related to the pandemic.
Okay.
And these grants will run for another couple of years. Some of our, the use of the money in the ESSER grants, it tends to be front loaded. So when we receive the money, we really wanted to put it to use right away as opposed to spreading it out over the length of time.
And the hiring of the math paras, will they be part of the training for the new math program? The math program that you
Yes.
mentioned, so they'll be part of the ongoing education there?
Yes, so to the extent that they are elementary math paraeducators, they will receive training from the math specialist at Samuel Staples, Stephanie Horoy, to onboard them to the program and then understand their role in supporting their students.
Fantastic, thank you.
Hey, can I ask one more question?
Yeah, please.
Just reminded me. I feel like over the summer, maybe right at the end of the school year, there was some talk of using like a high dosage tutoring model with college students for the acceleration. Is that still part of the plan, or is that moving kind of?
So we're doing a number of different things. So I've actually been in touch with Western Connecticut State University. And I'm in discussions with one of the advisors there about using undergrad students to support our schools as part of their field work. And that's not typical for us. So that's something that would be very different. But I think that as long as we have the right agreements in place with the university and they understand the way that we do things in Easton, then I think that could be a good support for our students. And so we're going to be talking about that further with the administrators tomorrow. That's something we want to move forward and do. And then additionally, the interns, the use of interns there. We have not had interns in Easton for a very long time. So the fact that we have interns this year is really pleased.
Awesome, exciting, thank you.
Okay. Jen, anything to share?
Sure. I do want to apologize in advance. I reported that in the board packet. Very simple explanation is we've had a restructuring in my office and responsibilities for staff over the summer. So, we're still working out the kinks. One of the things that teacher concern are specialized roles, especially in the state of Connecticut, which is fairly new traditions. That's been a challenge in many districts. The good news is we've been able to fill all of our certified staff here in Easton. I just wanted to give you a quick, introduction to the position that we did fill over the summer. We have a new supervisor, Nicole Bannock. She joined us from Stanford, and I think she'll be a great asset to our district. We also have we had 2 vacancies in Samuel Staples, and we had 2 teachers from Helen Keller join us. But they're new vacancies, but they're not new to the district, and that would Tara Augustine and Karen Serrata for Beach. We also have a teacher in Helen Keller, Joyce Tillman, who is working with us for a year in our special education program. And we have a new speech and language pathologist, 0.6, Megan Fisher. We also have contracts with agencies to fill some hard to fill positions like BCBA, OTs, and PTs. So we've been contracting with Constellation. We've had a contract for 3 years, but they have also sent some new staff to us, so there will be new faces from Constellation. So in terms of
IEPs. We've had, some kids move out, and then of course, we always have new kids who move in. We also are in an unusual year because we've had kids that withdrew last year because of COVID or personal choices, and they have now re-enrolled back. So we're looking at probably about 4 or 5 students that have re-enrolled that are not new to us. So we've been very busy convening PPT meetings because we have lots of IEPs. So we've really been trying to make sure that these kids are supported as they return to us. The state also is rolling out a new IEP format, which will be a massive undertaking. So this year we'll be spending a lot of time training. And part of it will be is some of my reports may include the rollout of those new IEPs because all the stakeholders have to be aware of the challenges centering around that. So I'll start including some of those into my work reports moving forward. So that's really all that I have to report. Usually September is the time we start catching up. We have new kids, we're welcoming new families. So that's really where we are at this point.
Thank you. Any questions for Jen?
How, do you have a timeline by which you have to have all of the IEPs into the new format? And do you need, I just would, I know that's a lot of work, learning that process, changing, rewriting, doing all those things. So just wondering if you would maybe need additional support or you don't know that yet.
If you're talking about the new IEP format, the state gave us, they would like to roll it out at the beginning of next July. So they've been doing pilots all of last year, and this year they're really revving up the training of it. Really, the new IEP format, and maybe I will include in my next board report each and see what that format looks like. It's supposed to be very family-centered, parent-friendly, and it's broken down in a way that they really are trying to capture the student and the parent voice in the new IEP. They want the document to be user-friendly. So that's really the focus of the new IEP has been. As with any new program or new initiative, there's always a lot of front loading that has to be done. So the state is really rolling out the different timelines. By December you should have this completed. So my supervisor and I have been working on trying to establish that timeline. The state has also assured us there will be training of teachers on the IEP that will be coming from the state. So we will be sending stakeholders out to be trained, and then hopefully we can turn back into our district. The interesting thing about the new IEP is supposed to be in real time. So right now, what we do is we manually upload everything into the state system. Apparently, every time we have a meeting, it's supposed to automatically change in the student management system, and parents are supposed to have access to a portal. So that means they could go in and they can see the IEPs and they change. That's really all that we have at this point. So we're stated, working aggressively.
Great, thank you.
Jen, so we have, I'm trying to remember last year's numbers, but we have 140, 150 students with IEPs, ballpark. Well, right.
Right now.
Yes. Well, I mean, the reason for the question is the state requiring that all the current IEPs be rewritten to match the form that they have, the new form that they've sent out?
I'm not sure what the ballpark would be. I would have to go back and look at how many students we have, but typically I would say it's under 200. I'm looking at all these things, right? We also have out-of-district students. We have preschool too. So that's why I would give you the ballpark. Under 200.
But we have all the students had IEPs last year. The state is now going to require a new form. Does that then therefore require that all 200 IEPs have to be rewritten to meet the criteria that the form will ask for?
I don't know if they have to be rewritten, they're talking about, one of the things that they talked about was, putting it into some kind of an Excel spreadsheet. And then when they upload it, I think preliminary upload from it, my understanding is that if we put everything correctly into the spreadsheet, then, it'll automatically populate into the.
Okay.
Administrative tab.
I can't imagine how difficult the job will be to try to take all of your IEPs and recreate them into a new form to satisfy the mandate, but thank you for that.
It sounds massive.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
and the IEP is
Right.
not friendly to anyone,
Mm-hmm.
so the fact that somebody's thinking about making it user friendly to
Yeah.
someone.
It's
It's a revelation.
But-
The IEP is not.
And I
friendly to
think what we're
anyone.
trying to say is, as this
That's
is
not new
rolling
news.
out, if you see the need for support.
Right.
Funding additional staff, temporary basis or long-term basis to please, be forthcoming with us. We want to support you through it.
We're having what we call our back to school meeting with the Bureau of Special Ed, probably next week. And I anticipate we probably have conversations. And I know more, I will certainly relay that.
That would be excellent. And if it's possible as a part of the October meeting to give it, and it doesn't need to be a 20 slide deck, but a 1 slide or 2 slides that help us to understand what's really going on there and what the plan is for that, I think would be helpful. Then if we do need to go get more resources, we can use those slides to make the case.
Jen, are they also changing the triannual IEPs as well? The triannual that all kids need to go through every third year, is that part of the change that's going to be taking place as well?
Talk about the evaluation.
Yes.
Those are the 3 years. They haven't really made that still unchanged.
Oh, that's unchanged. Okay, thank you.
And we'll hear more next month. Okay. More next month. Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Hold on, looking at the order here. Yes, Sarah?
Me. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Scrafani, and I'm the new Director of Technology and Digital Learning. So I have an entry plan and some updates to share with you. And let's see if I can make the mouse work from the middle. Is this, if I stand here, am I gonna be standing in like a
Awkward, because you could also do it from your seat. You could also do it in your seat too. Yeah, that's That's right.
That's not a good look. Okay. Oh, my. All right. So first, I just want to say how excited I am. This is a wonderful opportunity for me, and I've just really been enjoying working in the district and meeting all of the great people. And I'm really excited to see such a great focus on our students, and that just every conversation just comes around that. And I'm just so appreciative and excited as an educator that that's just the tenor of everything. So I am very excited to be here. So here are some of the things that I have been working on with Dr. Pearson-Ugal and with Dr. McGoran. So really coming into a new place, really trying to understand what our current strengths and needs are, what needs immediate attention, and then just some future planning. So to help inform that, here is a very small, and you can't really see it, but I'll just walk through it and hopefully you can. It really is just a chart of, not an organizational chart, but a chart of where we are and where I'd like to go in conjunction with our central office leadership, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. So really overarching is the vision and the mission and the enduring goals and aspirations, the ABCs and the equity and inclusion statement. And then really my work is really to help support that And there's three main areas there: communication, curriculum and technology leadership, and then data. And under each one of those is the idea of what really kind of needs to happen right now, and then the future needs and opportunities. So for communication, looking at our current platforms, what we currently have, as Dr. Pearson-Hugo was talking about, looking at the website, talking about those curriculum documents, putting all those things online, those are some really current needs. But then taking a look at some of the future needs and opportunities of what we can continually do to improve communication. For our technology and curriculum, really that the immediate need is putting those curriculum guides up online, and then looking at Google Classroom this year for students as well. So we are working on that currently. And then in the future, just how we leverage technologies to really support teaching and learning very mindfully. And then our data collection is really important. And so how do we collect that right now? And how do we share that out with others? And then what are our future needs for analysis, and what opportunities do we have? So as I'm thinking about all of that, I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I'm looking at as I go and meet with people. So I'm looking at the communication platforms, I'm looking at the systems and the networks, our technology readiness. We have technology standards called ISTE standards, and they break down really beautifully what we want students to be able to do with technology, educators, our teacher leaders, our coaches. So really framing all of that with that lens, looking at how we are moving towards that. The support and professional development, opportunities at each grade for technology integration, digital support, our data collection, analysis, and sharing. The opportunities for resource sharing, which I think is very important because we have three different places, but we often have some more very common resources. So how can we share those? And then parent resources as well. So as I'm looking at those three different sort of buckets, the communication, the technology, the data, these are some of the things that I'm thinking about as I walk through those areas. And then, so how am I doing that? Well, I'm meeting with people. So these are just some of the various groups and individuals. The IT and data and system administrators, our central office, the administrators at the schools, our department chairs, our team leaders, our instructional coaches, teachers and related services, and then really to develop some more relationships with the students and the parents and the community to really create that needs assessment. Another piece of that is reviewing all of the documentation. And there really is a lot. So that is all of the prior technology advisory meeting minutes. Where have you been in the past? What were some of the thinking that was happening there? The infrastructure plans, the accessible use policies, the documented procedures, the websites, the technology inventory, the hardware, the software, the digital tools, the subscriptions, the usage reports, the budget documents. And it's really a broad lens on all of the resources tied to supporting that data-driven, informed decision-making. So immediately, these are some of the things underneath those three buckets. So improving the current website platform to be more accessible and user-friendly, and then updating the publicly available curriculum documents. Building capacity with Google Classroom. That's a really important platform for all of our students and our teachers to really focus on empowering the learner. So I shared with teachers that really in Google Classroom, there are some places where kids can have tools in that platform that will really help them as learners to take control of the information. And that's a really important skill that ties right back to our ISTE standard. And then we've purchased some research-based digital tools. So Share Deck is one of those, it's a Google Slides add-on. And what it does is it creates presentations that are engaging. So if, for example, we have this presentation and it was a Paradise slide and you had a device, whether you were here or you were someplace else, you could engage in participating in that platform. Screencastify lets students and teachers do some digital recording and editing. And then Edpuzzle is a fantastic resource in a lot of different ways, in that it lets you create the video and then ask questions at certain points along the way for students to be able to engage. And all of these things are really designed to be done both in the classroom synchronously and then in an asynchronous platform as well. We also are looking at some of the Connecticut State Department of Education funded resources, and I've been doing that with Dr. Pearson Google. We've been looking at Apex and Applied Learning and some of our internal systems for support. Working on an ER9 digital tools web resource that can be one place where teachers and parents and students can go. And then for our IT guys, we have all of these fantastic people who are fantastic at what they do, and being able to share some of those resources and ideas in simple places. Just a shared repository of resources is something that we've already created and people are already using, which is really great. And then really understanding the student assessment, data storage, and understanding what pieces we have and how we collect them and how we share them right now, and then how we can help do that even better in the future. Those are some things that we're doing immediately. And then some future planning, communication. I like to see us have a more comprehensive communication plan where we can really increase some equity, inclusion, digital citizenship, create an even better way of letting everyone know what's happening. Our curriculum, really leveraging the technology to transform learning. So I put up a 3-year plan because I really feel like that 5-year plan is too far out, technology changes too rapidly. We're really having a 3-year plan that takes a look at all of the different pieces that come together to really inform what we can do to transform the learning with technology. So that's our network, our infrastructure, our hardware, our software, our professional learning. That doesn't just include teachers, that's really a broader brush. So that's parents and students to support student success. And then under data, there's a lot of data that's collected. And I think we've really been talking about some different ways that we can create some shared tools, whether we do that in-house or identify something in the future that is a third party that can really collect and aggregate and then analyze that data. So those are the 3 things. Those are the 3 areas that I've been focusing on and where we're going. Glad to share with you.
Thank you. Any questions for Sarah?
Very, very good presentation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much for the comprehensive overview and looking forward to continuing to hear as we make progress. Very good.
We don't have a director of finance, so
Right. So we move on.
we're
Move on to the next item.
But you might want to share that we're close.
Yes, I think it is worth. So we do not have a director of finance and operations here to speak, but we've been having making great progress in our search. We have promising opportunities there. So we hope to be able to give some updates in the not very distant future. We'll move on to building leader reports. Kim and Steve.
I think we had an absolutely wonderful return to school. I saw kids bounding off the bus, out of their cars, very excited to return to San Diego. It was wonderful to see. And there is nothing better, with all due respect to all of your occupations, there's really nothing better than holding a child's hand who wants to tell you about his or her summer vacation and how much they miss me. And then walking them to their class and introducing them to their teacher. It's really a very profound moment to see kids who look at these teachers in such awe. And hearing a kindergartner after 7 days tell me as I was walking into his car, I want to be a teacher.
No.
It's really quite a wonderful job that I have. And then I know the teachers enjoy. There are some changes that I actually think show that we're moving a direction more towards the typical. Our kindergartners are eating lunch in the classroom because it was always the one grade level that had to overlap because we only have so many hours to serve them lunch. But we have everybody now eating in the cafeteria. At the long tables, the students are sitting on one side, every other seat. But at the round tables, there's 3 to 4 kids and they are facing each other. So it just depends on the classes that have the round tables and those that have the long tables. In the classrooms themselves, when you all left in June, we were sitting 3 to 6 feet apart, edge of the desk to edge of the desk. Now we're 3 feet apart, student to student. And yes, we are all facing the same direction. And they do wear their masks. I think the teachers have been incredibly thoughtful about mask breaks. And I've encouraged them, you look for those signs. You see them tugging and pulling and looking discomfort, you go on out for a mask break. And I've seen the teachers take the kids out a lot. And I think that that's good. And if parents have questions with regard to the frequency of the mask breaks, please reach out to the classroom teacher. It's a very typical question and they should share that with you. They do go to their art class and their music class and their media class and in the gym. That has returned to a sense of normalcy. They're spread out again, 3 feet apart, but I have walked in and out of these rooms and it's wonderful. They're singing. For the longest time, you know, the National Council of Teachers of Music wasn't recommending singing. They're singing, wearing a mask, but they're singing. So it's great. All of that looks and feels great. We did hire some new staff. You might remember that when we passed the budget, it was a 4th grade vacancy that we were looking for. We had a 3rd grade teacher who wanted to take her entire 3rd grade and move them up to 4th grade. So that then left me a 3rd grade vacancy. So I'm very happy to share that we hired Mrs. Claire Heavner. She was at Samuel Staples all of last year as a long-term sub for 2 different teachers that fortunately went on maternity leave at 2 opposite ends of the school year. Miss Caroline Calhoun had resigned. So we hired a new 5th grade teacher named Mrs. Courtney Danloo, who is a very experienced 4th grade teacher in another Connecticut town. Mrs. Karen Woodford retired. She was a remedial reading teacher. So we hired Miss Kristen Palmer, who has been a remedial reading teacher in Massachusetts. Who's getting married this weekend, and I do not know her new last name. For the first time in probably a good 4 years, we have a full complement of cafeteria supervisors and recess supervisors. And we are treating them extra kind, so they're going to stay with us for a very long time. We had 2 kindergarten paraprofessionals who moved into other positions. So we hired 2 kindergarten paras and a media assistant who moved into another position. We hired a media assistant. We hired 3 Sacred Heart University interns. Only 2 of them are actually completing their student teaching before becoming full-time substitutes. One of them is a graduate from Penn State, and she wanted to join the Sacred Heart University program. So all she needs to complete is the full year internship. So we have loved having them, and my goodness, are they sharp. Really very impressive. We have offered in terms of the full-time math assistant position that we're funding through the ESSER grant. We've offered the position to one who's thinking about it, and we still have 1 vacancy. Should you have interest in teaching mathematics, I have no doubt you can handle the other one or not. But please, if you know anybody who might be interested in working with kids, we'd love to have them. Enrollment, the only thing I guess I do want to draw your attention to in terms of our enrollment, you remember in late November, December, we've always gotten the Crowder numbers, and with the help of Mr. Zachary, he recommended that we secure, I forget, Malone and
Big room.
something like that. So I included those 2 projections in the column that reads enrollment projections. I cleverly named that. So you can see the actuals in the total line compared to both Prada and the other company. How close we came. I thought that was pretty important for you guys to see how well Crowder came in, how well the second
Yes,
company
thank
did.
you.
We welcomed 35 new kids. Those are first through fifth grade. 35 new kids. I gave more tours this summer than I have ever given. It was really very exciting. And we had 12 students who withdrew. PTO, I cannot let this evening go without giving an extra thank you on behalf of everybody at Samuel Staples and for the Board of Ed to know. They were so thoughtful and generous to Samuel Staples. In addition to one of the most delicious welcome back lunches, they funded a number of pieces of equipment that either failed or the kids voted for in the student vote. So we have a new balance beam on the K2 playground, which is getting great reviews. A new binding machine and a laminator and an adult size dolphin costume for our mascot. that fits Mr. Brownstein perfectly. So into the dolphin will be making an appearance.
Oh, man.
And then the last thing I want to say was about PTO, back to school night. Given the number of people who attended, it was the social event of the season in the elementary school. All parents come. The square footage of the room is just too tight. So we are going to do our back to school night virtually. And I, went around and chatted with a few parents that I know fairly well and asked what their impression was last year. And I guess it actually worked pretty well. They didn't need childcare, parents seem to enjoy it. So I hope it goes as well this year. And that's everything I have.
Thank you, Kim. Any questions for Kim? All right, thank you.
Nice job, Kim.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for the warm welcome from the entire community. It's an honor to be here and part of the team and to be having my first board meeting on Dr. Torrance last evening. So I don't know if it's dubious or not. Let's see. So the return to school at middle school was very smooth. We had a great start to the school year. Unlike the elementary school where kids were bounding out of the car, they were a little bit slower on the car as parents tried to get that last kiss in, waving goodbye and the embarrassed looks on their faces, and quickly conjoining to their peers as they entered into the school. What a wonderful, nice group of students. One thing you guys didn't tell me about this is how wonderful the kids are. And they all say good morning to me, have a nice day. And it's just such a nice, such an nice start today. And I'm out there every morning to drop off, playing music and trying to get them pumped up. And it's been a great experience to get to know the parents that way. We do have all of our classes operating. Students rotating through the full typical middle school schedule. They're separated by 3 feet in all classes. So we're able to pretty confidently say if there was a case, which we hope there will not be, that we don't have to quarantine too many students. And with that, we were also able to get back our library as well, which was huge. We were able to move into the cafeteria with some dividers, and we came up with a scheme that we feel the students are all 3 feet apart. Even if they had their masks off, that would be an area we'd be a little bit vulnerable if there was a case, and have to do some contact tracing. But they're all together and they really like being together. They gave us some feedback over the summer. All the students submitted some feedback to us and who they wanted to sit with. So we were able to pair the students up with someone who they wanted to sit with rather than being just assigned a table.
That's good.
They are in assigned seats, so we know who's sitting where. We do need to contact trace, but and then they gave us some feedback that they didn't like that trace that we made. So we made some adjustments and some feedback, and everybody's pretty happy right now for where they're sitting, and they're happy to be all the way together. And we're taking a long mass break at lunch. I brought out some basketballs. We have the basketball courts going, some music playing out there. It's been a nice break in the day for the kids, and it's a nice chance for me to see them without the mask on. So new staff, we had quite a bit of hiring. Came right into it when it started. There's some moves that happened that created some moves and some opportunities that opened up for us. So Jennifer Burke was our literacy interventionist. She moved into our 6th grade opening to fill her retirement. That created another vacancy. We hired Amy Hopman to take over for Jen as the lead interventionist. She's done a wonderful job already. She fits right in perfectly. In PE and health, we lost a PE and health teacher, somebody. And we were fortunate though to bring in Libby Tiani, who I had actually had experience with in another district. Wonderful, and is doing a wonderful job putting in. Maggie Gasowski is the new art teacher. Also doing a wonderful job right off the bat. It's a really calming effect. Walking in the room, she's playing music. It's very calm. It's very easy. It's nice. A new school counselor, Sarah Terry, has started to fill a retirement. She's quickly going out on maternity leave, and we already have a sub in for her who has done some crossover days already. She's ready to have her second child in day now, so we're ready with our sub in place. Jen brought up Nicole Fennick, who's been just a perfect fit into the school. It's been a great supervisor, and Joyce Tillman, who is coming as seventh grade special education teacher. Allison Gale has now taken the desk back at the Library Media Center. So we have a Library Media Specialist. Thank you very much for that. This is wonderful. She has some really good ideas. He plans on doing some crowdsourcing and doing some getting a committee together to see how we might want to re-envision this space to be really a true 21st and a half century learning commons, learning center. So it'll be exciting work in the years to come. Reagan Fisher is our new speech and language pathologist. That brought up. Penny Rudy and Austin Baldur are new math interventionists, thanks to the SIR grants. Kate Donahue and Jenna Pierce are our behavior technicians. We do have some vacancies we're still looking at. I think the one I would like to comment to the board most of all is we still don't have a school security officer. That's been a hard position to fill. We've had a couple of candidates who made it all the way to offering them the position. However, they've declined due to the compensation. So that's something we might want to consider. In the meantime, Easton Police Department has been very gracious and being here every day as a police officer. I do think that that is probably pretty expensive over time. So we'll look at that. But it's great having the police there, probably the traffic, and trying to keep things flowing out of here, in and out for drop off. And Chief Doyle has been awesome with the support. We are still looking for one full-time building sub, for the ESR3 grant money. There's nobody who's applied yet, so we've tried to repost it a couple of times. So if you know somebody who is in the process or would like to become to the school system, this is a great opportunity to do so. As Kim pointed out, there was some differences in the projections. So those projections, as we saw, went up. We have 32 more students than we expected this year at Keller. 3 in 6th grade, 15 in 7th grade, and 14 in 8th grade, which is wonderful to have that. I mean, it really kind of fills us up nicely. We're in good capacity right now, and I look forward to keeping all that. We had, as Kim said, we had a lot of tours going on this summer. We had some great events. The PTO, as Kim said, was wonderful. They helped co-sponsor some summer events, some summer orientation events. Both the 6th graders never really got a chance to come in here last spring, so we had events here for all the 6th grade parents. We had the tents up out front, some music playing. We had 7th and 8th graders who gave tours of the school. So wonderful to see the older kids take such pride in their school, and no one can do a better tour than a 7th grader to a 6th grader, in my opinion. They kind of puff up their chest. But they did a great job of being. The PTO did a wonderful job of helping, and I can't go long without saying that Mrs. Moore, the assistant principal here, has done this yeoman's work, filling in for the retirements of Catherine, and the vacancies were there. She worked all summer. I don't think she took much time off at all, so she's been a great support all the way through. Also, like Kim was saying, we'll have our back to school night or open house. It will be virtual again this year. That is on September 29th. I believe that's a change. Originally, there was a conflict. So September 29th from 7 to 9. Just wanted to know that. I think my best moment as a principal, it'd be a hard one to top, was September 10th event that we put together here for our 9/11. The fire department set up a couple of ladder trucks, and for the firefighters, we had several police officers. EMT was here, and 2 of our veterans, Mr. Kevin Rogers and Paul D'Agostino, who are Navy veterans, raised our flag for us as we played taps. We had our band teacher play taps in the background, and we all recited the Pledge of Allegiance together. The kids were magnificent. I mean, it took a little minute to unfurl the flag properly, and it was just perfectly quiet. Still, it was kind of creepily similar to September 11th, the weather-wise. But the feeling, the honor was to be with our heroes around our flag and raising that, and then have everybody recite the pledge together with our own veterans who participated in those conflicts that followed 9/11 was something that will be tough to top in the over the years. And the only other thing I would say is please try to follow us on social media. Mrs. Moore and I are trying to post pictures regularly, appropriate pictures of everything that's going on in school to try to make the school come alive and open up. One of our big goals this year is to improve our communication systems. That doesn't necessarily mean more communication, but trying to make the communication come alive, and that is some Instagram. So we have an Instagram and a Twitter handles that we're posting on every day. And so I would encourage people to follow that. I don't have many followers yet, so they're putting up like school delays or something like that. Posting to try to get some more followers. But so I would encourage anybody out there to do that.
What is the Instagram?
Yeah, sure. It's Helen Keller Middle School with all lowercase, and in between each word is a underscore. So it's Helen _ Keller _ middle _ school, all lowercase. That's at Helen Keller. And then my the Twitter handle is at HKMS _ Easton.
One more time.
Yep, at HKMS _ Easton.
Is Easton lowercase?
Easton is actually capitalized.
Okay.
But it is on the website, so both handles on the website. Be able to this video is the 9/11 ceremony that we did. It's really powerful. We have about 3 or 4 minutes to spare. It was a real honor for the involved in that. I think it was memorable for the kids as well.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, that'll take us to board committee reports. I'll kick off to say we've been making progress with the policy committee to coalesce around some new language. So that new laws went into place July 1st around some of the climate work and anti-bullying legislation that went into effect. And we're working to incorporate that into the policy. We were actually hoping to have that as part of tonight's, that we do a first reading of it, but we didn't make as much progress as we had hoped. And so we think we'll be able to get to that this Friday and then make it a recommendation for our next meeting. In addition, we've been meeting with we've met with the negotiating committee to figure out our position for an offer for a candidate for the director of operations and finance. And with the committee for negotiations, we have been meeting with the administration. Sorry, thank you. Thank you. Yes, for the administrators' contracts, we've had great conversations, very productive conversations. We'll be moving on to conversation 2 of 3, and we hope to a good agreement at the end of those conversations. Anyone else have any updates with regard to board committees?
The DEI committee met, I don't remember, a while ago. Our next meeting is September 25th, I believe. During that time, I know there's a couple questions around the analyst who's reviewing both the climate survey data as well as the DEI survey data. So we discussed that at that meeting, and we expect, as Stephanie mentioned earlier, to have a reporting of both the climate survey and the DEI survey data during the 9/25 meeting.
Thank you. I want to also mention that we'll be working on sort of committee assignments, looking to get Jen assigned to committees, make sure that sort of we're all having the opportunity to do that important work.
Carry the load.
Yeah, right. Jenny and I were sort of talking about the possibility of having Jen join the communication committee. I had been a member of that, and I'm as chair a member of really all of the committees and try to attend all of them as I can. But I think there's some really good work there and some exciting opportunities to do some work in that space. Anyone have anything else? Okay. Moving on. So we are now at discussion and possible action. We have two items for discussion and possible actions tonight. The first is looking for the approval of a change in authorized signer. So as we have Jason starting with us on Monday, we want to make sure that we can be ahead of this, and for Easton, the Easton Board of Education, that we can have him sort of hit the ground running and be the authorized signer. So we'll look for a motion that the Easton Board of Education approve the change to authorized signer of the ED 099 agreement for child nutrition program to Dr. Jason McKinnon, superintendent, effective
9/20.
effective 9/20. Thank you. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Devin. Any discussion? Hearing none. Well, I think we can probably do this by way of a hand raise. All in favor? Unanimously approved. Thank you very much. That takes us to 6B. Tom, I think you had some things you wanted to share with us about bus capacity, route
Yeah,
times, et cetera.
thanks. There's actually no action for you to take tonight. I just want to get out on at a board meeting that I've met with the dispatch manager for First Student. I met on Friday to talk about how the first week went, and to just express some concerns. I've asked them to ensure that they're in compliance with windows being opened and kids being properly spaced, which I believe is the case. But I also want to raise that several of our routes are pushing beyond 55 minutes, and the duty to the company is to go pick up the drop off in less than an hour. So those earliest kids on the buses are running 55, 56 minutes. And so far they're managing to keep within that window. And I've asked them to provide us some performance data on that, and it didn't come in by today, but I will make sure that Dr. McKinnon continues to follow up on this. As you may recall that formerly we had 16 bus routes, and 3 years ago moved it to 15 routes, but then you've picked up a number of kids, and it's really not so much the number of kids that you see trundling along on the buses in the morning. It's where those kids' houses are and how we go pick them up. There's all kinds of safety protocols on how buses can turn, if kids can cross roads and things like that. So you're not at a point where you have to take an action, but we certainly are filling the time available in the way we're picking up and getting kids to the school. And we often, when we think about this, we think about those two acts, getting the kids to the building and getting them home. But we have to make sure we have capacity for moving all of the kids if there were some catastrophic event that required us to get the buses here and get the kids to a place of refuge. So just keep that in your mind, please. So I don't know yet if this will translate into a request for that 16th bus route back and at budget time. But I do want us to just be thinking about it and monitoring it and reporting back to you again. As you can probably imagine, the first couple of weeks of school are not indicative of the run for the bulk of the year. You have a lot of people driving their own kids in until they feel more comfortable with it. I know that both Dr. Clapp and Ms. Fox have been trying to help facilitate that in the morning, and it takes a while for the two streams, the buses and the parent community, to figure out how to do that in a timely way. But I don't believe that that's posing us a real.
The drivers are doing a superb job.
Yes, good.
The buses are a little bit late arriving to San Jose again. We're the end of the run, right? They go to Barlow, then they go to Keller, then they come to us.
Yeah.
So usually the trend is when I have finished Carline, the buses are being boarded. What I'm finding is that not all the buses are in the front of the school yet.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that as part of the very full runs that we're conducting. So thank you for that, Dr. Platt.
Yeah, I've been out there trying to help the police try to see if there's a faster way we can. And I think the biggest obstacle is people want to drop their kids at the door. They don't want to drive past the door. So we're trying to get everybody to drive as far down the sidewalk as possible, then unload. And then we can kind of queue 7 or 8 more cars at a time if we can do that. So there, but I think that was harder to start school. We've kind of gotten into a rhythm now. We're getting my hand signals, and getting better at it myself. It seems like the last few days have gone a little bit smoother. There's a little bit of a congestion now getting out of the, getting it, so you can get people out, so the buses can get out and go on the Staples run. It's getting a little clogged up exiting, so.
Yeah.
You kind of, it's like a plumbing issue, right? You solve one weak point, now the new weak point is a little bit further down the line.
Yeah.
So, we need to look at that.
At the state level, transportation, bus transportation to school is approaching a crisis in some parts of the state. There are not enough licensed drivers, and there's a bit of a backlog in getting them certified. You might have heard there's actually an elementary school in a distant town in Connecticut that had to go into virtual learning because they had so many of their bus drivers out of action due to infection that posed an issue. Our company says they have not only enough drivers to cover our routes, they also have some backup and auxiliary drivers, and so they are paying attention, but they don't say it's a problem for us at the moment. And of course, the safe and timely transportation of kids is what we want to make sure we'll do. So there will be some actual performance data on the runs that we'll get at some point in I'll make sure our business transportation manager is it has that ready for your next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Is Jason already up to speed on this?
Not this particular item,
okay,
but he will be. Yeah.
All right, great. Any other questions for Dr. McMorrin?
Tom, when we get that data, can we also get previous year's data too, so that we can compare and contrast?
I'll see what they can do.
Okay, thank you. They should have 3 years. This is our 3rd year with them.
At least, and at least 2 that's pretty specific because they activated the GPS stuff last year, right?
Right.
So that should be pretty spot on.
So we should be, we should have some real information.
Yeah. Okay. All right, very good. It takes us to public comment. Anyone interested in making public comment? Yes, please.
I'm Hillary Desmond again at 71 Park Avenue. I want to thank Dr. Moran for your touching story that you shared with us tonight. It was obviously very heartfelt, and as a right now, it meant a lot to me that you would share that, and I do appreciate the time that you've come in as the interim superintendent, and just want to thank you for that. So
thank you.
You get to go retire now. It's all good. And anecdotally, I know that Dr. Clapp told about the changes or what he's seen here. I have a middle schooler here. He loves the new lunch setup. He loved that he got to choose who he got to sit with. He ended up getting to sit at a table of 4 with 3 of his best friends. And that's made a big difference where lunch is his favorite subject in middle school. That's probably the same thing. And also again, being a middle school student, I don't get that much information out of them. So both thank you for the Instagram and Twitter updates. I do follow those, and it's nice to see pictures. And he did come home on Friday and said that he mentioned that 9/11 remembrance anniversary, and so that did touch the heart of a little 13-year-old boy. So thank you for putting that on and making it special for them. I appreciate all of you. You've obviously hired some great people, and seeing the principals and administrators here, you guys, I can tell that you care deeply for my kids and every single child. So thank you again.
Thank you. Yes.
Carolyn Oppenheim, Hunting Ridge Road. I was thinking about what comment from Ms. Bonoff, because we were talking about the live meeting versus the Zoom meeting, and then we should have the Zoom meeting, and public comment, and I kind of have a different perspective in that, first of all, I've always, as you all, some of you know, I've been coming for years and years and years, but I think that people can, there's gotta be a way, I'm hoping that you'll think about a way where people can send in their information, and maybe with the help of, Miss, is it Scrivani, sorry, thank you, the new tech director, maybe we could post comments, public comment online, if they send it to you, so that, because I find that when we have these Zoom meetings that last 4 hours, 5 hours, I can't possibly, this is manageable at 2 hours. I can't possibly listen for 4 or 5 hours to everything that everybody needs to say when we've had 2.5 hours of public comment at the beginning and then 2 hours at the end. And I can't imagine what that does to all of you, but I don't have that. I can't imagine.
Thank you. Thank you,
But,
Carolyn.
but it's too much. I can't keep track, but I want to hear what everybody has to say. I'm trying to be more understanding of all sides. And so I'd love to see it, but if I'm gonna take the time to come to be able to speak my mind, but I want, and again, that other people can too. I think that for those who can't, because obviously everybody has their own situation, hopefully maybe we could do something where on the website or so that we can see the public comments, so people get to express themselves and we all get to see what that is. And so, as opposed to maybe having these long drawn out marathon public comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Yes.
Julia Bassett, 183 Mark Road in Easton. I'd like to tag on to a little bit of what Carolyn had to say and talk a little bit about respectful dialogue. I'd like to see how our community, whether our community, you consider our community, this room, our education community, our town at large, have communication with active listening and an effort to understand all views, which is what makes any community great, in my opinion. As I said, whether or not a community is as small as a garden club or as large as the school system or a town at large, in the last months and years, we have all seen a division within our immediate communities and within our world. Then that division is only becoming greater. In order for any community to thrive, it's an imperative that most, if not all, in these groups are respectful and come to the table with compassion and humility. That goes for those who have something to say, but it also goes for those who are hiding behind the so-called curtains. As Dr. McMorrin alluded to, Easton is a great community. We are seeing things fall apart around the world, and I think the fundamental thing that so many forget, because let's face it, we are human, and the state of the world can be incredibly unsettling and scary, which is good reason to forget, that we all need to have an opportunity to speak and be listened to.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Excuse me, Rachel Mazzarelli again. So when we are able to make decisions in our region and we're not being mandated by the governor, also one point that I had forgotten to make that makes no logical sense, and I'm all about just critical thinking and logic, and I am not looking to have any enemies. I have friends in this room, we may not see eye to eye, but piggybacking on what Julia says, if we can agree to disagree in love and still be able to show up, then we've really missed the mark of being a human, in my opinion. So at the expense of not wanting to ruffle anybody's feathers, again, back to the quarantine, no quarantine, vaccinated, unvaccinated, you're at home, unvaccinated, yet you're simply can go to school. It just, again, doesn't make logical sense to me. So I'm just asking everybody to be able to, when we can, as a town and as a region, make some different decisions based on more logic than seems to be being had right now. That would be amazing. I want to go back to last year because I just wanted to be noted and highlighted. A huge thank you to Kimberly, because at the 9th hour of school ending last year, she managed to put together a meeting to get my daughter a 504. And I know that it was not easy, and so I just wanted it to be heard at the board that I know she moved mountains to make that happen. And so my incredible gratitude for that. Thank you so much, and hats off to you. In trying to be, one of the things about this virus that has been a challenge, again, coming from the medical world, is I believe there's so much more that we could be offering to be preventive. And so as a community, I would love to be able to see us offer more. For example, 80% of people that get COVID are vitamin D deficient. If we could get this information out to our community, we might be able to make a difference in a different way than just a fear tactic. We need to mask, we need to this, we need to. And so can we check for natural immunity instead of quarantining people, have them test? Do they have the antibodies? There's statistics out right now that are saying that it's estimated half of the secondary school age children have already been infected or acquired natural immunity. Because again, they're robust at their age, thank God. And so exploring outside of the box of what the politics have made a health issue. It's science, and I just think that maybe we stand up in so many ways in our community and shine, that I think there's an avenue that we could even make a bigger impact. And I'm happy to offer my 2 cents and expertise if that is something that we want to move forward in. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no additional public comment, we'll go to board member comments. Yes, Jen.
I just, in response, I'm sorry, what was your first name?
Me, Rachel.
Rachel, thank you for your feedback. I love the idea of being proactive to healthcare and doing things that can be preventative versus reactive. One suggestion I have is maybe going to our first selectman. I know he brought the health district to Easton, which is a great benefit to our community. And as a doctor, he would be able to, I'm sure, understand better than someone like me in layman terms what you may be suggesting. And he may take your suggestions and, know in action. Whereas here, I know speaking for myself, not having any medical degree, I couldn't really respond to that. But I think I definitely would recommend going to Dr. Bindleglass. I think he would be the point of contact.
Yep. Well, Tom, it's your last meeting again.
This time it's gonna stick.
That's what they all say.
Third time would be the charm, I'm sure. But thank you so very much for agreeing to come back and help us through this difficult time. You brought a calmness and a civility back to education that has been really embraced, I think, by everyone. You've lowered the temperature, and I think and that's been a great benefit for, I think, a whole lot of us. So thank you very much. Appreciate you more than you know, and I'll see you again.
Thank you.
Devin?
So I didn't get to work with Tom as a board member until recently because I was not a member of the board when you left us the first time, and so I've been really grateful. I just want to say thank you to your communication. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for coming in and I think providing reassurance. You mentioned the number of hires, so there were just a lot of open positions at each of our schools, as well as in the central office. And I definitely appreciate your willingness to come back into what could feel like a little bit of a crazy time. I know you were probably peacefully resting, and you chose to come back, and you're still hanging out with us at 9:30 on, I don't even know if today is on Tuesday. So thank you. And I also want to just echo what Hillary said. Your story about Zoe was deeply touching, and I think a great reminder that wearing a mask is a tribute and a support for other people just as much as it is for ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to say one more thing, I'm sorry.
Please.
To Julia, I agree 100%, you know, that our town can come together. We do have differences, but we can be can't speak tonight, respectful of those differences, and we just keep an open mind. You know, I fully 100% strive for community togetherness, regardless of differences. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Jen. Randy, did you have anything?
Very quick, just a huge thank you to Tom, and I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm very optimistic about this board and the schools and all the new professionals that we brought, you know, into the system. So you all should be too. So that's all.
Yes.
Thank you, Randy. Jenny, please. Yeah.
I don't know which one to say first. I'm thrilled that we're back in person. I'm so excited to see faces, even though, you know, we're partially covered. John and I kind of had a little bit of exchange about this, you know, before tonight, just kind of gathering our feedback about it. I think it was critical that we all get in the same space, just to be able to sort of share the collective energy and look each other in the eye without the distractions of the screen. I understand where folks are coming from as far as wanting to be able to participate, you know, with the pressures and of work and time and everything else. But I also think that Zoom, it wasn't all positive. You know, it definitely, it hindered us, and it created negative energy and negative spaces in a lot of ways. And I think it's going to take us a while to kind of dig our way out of that. And while it was convenient, it also set up a scenario where there was minimal investment on the viewer. And not that we need to find a balance between, I have to leave my home and my kids and my family and come to a meeting for 3 hours, but also be able to just sort of sit back and kind of like armchair quarterback, you know, and cast judgment and aspersions. And then there were safety concerns within those meetings. And I think a lot of folks also, I mean, including some of us, came out of those experiences, you know, not necessarily feeling positive about that time that we spent, you know, on Zoom. So it has its place, but you know, I don't have any problem at this moment, at least, with us really trying to work back towards. I guess I took some issue with the phrase of going back to the Stone Ages. I don't see it that way at all. I see it as we're getting back together. We're talking. We're here. You know, and the support that we feel in this room tonight is far different than, I would rather be with 20 people in person than 150 on Zoom any day of the week. So I'd also like to just sort of caution again, to have us really thoughtfully think about the idea of public comment in a public setting, in a digital form, you know, that social media discussions about board issues and education issues is, again, not 100% positive. It's kind of fostering and festering the division. And just to make sure that if there is any sort of digital format for, you know, constituents to share feedback, that we're really, really careful about the way that that is collected, that we're looking at how that fits into our bylaws, et cetera, and that we're, you know, really carefully think about how that's done so that it doesn't actually make things worse.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I just kind of wanted to talk to parents in the community a little bit. I see people on Facebook saying, you know, my daughter's hesitant to get on the bus, and you just kind of, you hear those beginnings of school transitions. And just to remind all of us to be so gentle with ourselves and our kids right now. And like, if you have somebody who's melting down at dinner time right now, you're not alone, that this is an even bigger transition than it's ever been before. You know, last year was not normal. And things are still so uncertain, and kids pick up on that, and we pick up on that. So just everybody hang in there. Everybody just hang in there. That's all. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Jenny. I'll be brief. So first, to Tom, I think many people over the last 18 months have spent a lot of time looking at my bookcase behind. And I've actually received little like, oh, I love that book from some people, but no one has noticed that there's actually a dedicated shelf that is filled with books from Tom, that either Tom handed me directly or Tom said, oh, you know what you got to read? You got to go read this. And I can't think of a better gift in this world than to give somebody a new mindset. One of those is actually called Mindset, was one of the books that he gave me. But just to give someone that new way of considering the world, of thinking more deeply about things. So I owe you a debt for that, and this town owes you a debt for coming back now and all the work that you did before. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I also just look around this table and would echo what Randy said, optimism about this board, and everyone sitting here, and even the people who are not here. I know our assistant principals are rock stars, our teachers are rock stars. Like this is the team. Like, you know, this is the is it the Yankees that are? No, okay, I'm not gonna. Everything was good. And then
You know what?
mentioned
It
the
all
Yankees.
went down the drain. Mark the time. 9:35, boom.
The 61 Yankees?
61 Yankees were very
Okay,
good.
we'll take the 61 Yankees. This is the team, dream team, okay?
They got 27 rings, how many this year? Oh.
Yeah, maybe one. So thank you so much to everyone around the table. The members of this board are incredibly dedicated, put in so much time. They're right there meeting, meeting the needs of the kids, and our administrators are top notch. I'll put them against anyone, anywhere. Connecticut, Massachusetts have a thing where we're either first or second in the nation every year for our public schools, and bring it on any district, anywhere. This is a great place to be. So thank you. You don't have anything else before we wrap? No? Okay, so look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, okay,
So
Jeff.
moved,
And then,
sorry.
I know, right? And
I'll
then
second.
Jen with the second, and absent
Yeah,
objection,
this adjourn-
we
this
are
motion
adjourned
second.
at 9:36.
Oh,
Thank